Another day, another indictment against Donald Trump. A month and a half after federal judge Aileen Cannon dismissed the classified documents case against Trump on the grounds that the special prosecutor was illegally appointed, 2.5 months after the Supreme Court ruled that President Trump does indeed have immunity from prosecution for acts performed in his official capacity as president, that aforementioned, apparently illegally appointed prosecutor, Jack Smith, has filed a superseding indictment of Trump presented to a new grand jury, slimming down the government's accusations against Trump to bump up once again the lawfare against the former and possibly future president to 4 criminal trials. What does that all mean? We'll get into some of the legal specifics, but the legal specifics don't really matter, as the government has proved by attempting relentlessly to prosecute Trump, no matter what the federal judges, including the Supreme Court, have to say about it. All you really need to know is the timeline. First, the Democrats tried to remove Trump from office twice. Didn't work. Then they tried to kick Trump off the ballot. Didn't work. Then they tried to put him in jail. Has not worked yet. Then they justified shooting him in the head, which very nearly worked, but he miraculously survived. Then they replaced their nominee for president. As the polls show, that has not yet totally worked. So now they are trying once again to put him into prison. That's pretty much it. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. RFK Jr. once sawed off a whale's head and took it home as whale juice, to use the phrase of his daughter, gushed into his car. We'll get into that. We'll get into what that means and why the media are reporting on that now. First, though, you got to go to thecandleclub.com. Don't forget thecandleclub.com. Sicilian summer is over. As of Labor Day, as far as I'm concerned, Sicilian summer is over. It was a great Sicilian summer. It was citrusy and zesty. Now we are into the fall. This is where you get the PSL official Michael Knowles candle, along with the other Michael Knowles candles, Old Soul, Crème de la Crème, Wise Man, which makes your home smell like a 12th century monastery. You get the Mayflower line of candles in beautiful colored jars. Now, today, we say jars of color. An amazing array of Michael Knowles candles. You know that the chief things that I sell are flammable objects. Cigars, we have candles. Go get them now at thecandleclub.com. You can join now, get exclusive perks, including 20% off a founding membership and exclusive access to members-only scents. Jack Smith, the special prosecutor who was illegally appointed by the DOJ, according to federal judge Aileen Cannon, Jack Smith has now, after his classified documents case was tossed out by the court, he's filed another indictment against Trump. And the purpose of this indictment is to slim down the charges and thereby skirt around what the federal courts have said about his stupid case against Trump and try to get him into an orange jumpsuit. That is in addition to the 3 other Democrat attempts to put Trump into an orange jumpsuit. How is CNN reporting on this relentless lawfare against the president? CNN writes, the Trump legal team's success in using the appeals process to delay most of his trials, or in the case of charges related to his mishandling of classified documents, have it dismissed entirely, and the transformation of the race with new Democratic nominee Vice President Kamala Harris has recently overshadowed the ex-president's legal woes. Listen to that gobbledygook. The team's success at using the appeals process to delay. Oh, you mean the Trump team following the law? Yes, they've manipulated this nasty little thing known as the law, which keeps ruling in their favor. Can you imagine how unjust, how illegitimate that the Trump team would try to use the law? We're trying to subvert the law on the left. How dare they use the law to their advantage? So what's in the new indictment? Prosecutors are arguing multiple times that Trump did not have any constitutionally assigned presidential duties regarding the transition of power or questioning the 2020 election. So the Supreme Court came out and said Trump has immunity for acts taken in his official capacity as president. If he went onto Fifth Avenue and shot someone in the head, he would not have immunity from prosecution. But when Trump is speaking to his attorney general, the acting attorney general, people at the DOJ regarding questions about the election, he does have immunity. And the special prosecutor now is coming out and saying, yeah, but not in that case. Like, sure, we recognize that the court says that he does have immunity. We've tried to argue that we can throw the man in prison for making a ham sandwich or jaywalking or something. But now we're saying that when he was president, he did not have any official duty to raise questions about the 2020 election, so we're going to throw him in jail for that. I think it's preposterous on its face. If you read the Supreme Court decision on immunity, I think it's absolutely preposterous what they're trying to do, but they're just throwing spaghetti at the wall. Nothing else the Democrats have tried has worked, so that's what they want to do. The prosecutors are doing their best to say that this new superseding indictment is in accord with the Supreme Court's ruling. I think it's total nonsense, and I think it reeks of desperation. Now, speaking of the swamp, which is trying to gobble up the president and pull him down whole, Mark Zuckerberg, the head of Meta, once known as Facebook, which continues to comprise Facebook and Instagram, and it's one of the biggest social media platforms in the world, Mark Zuckerberg has just admitted to Jim Jordan and the House Judiciary Committee that the government did indeed pressure Facebook to censor conservatives during the 2020 election, and Zuckerberg is admitting that Facebook complied. So we have this letter here to Jim Jordan from Zuckerberg. It says, there's a lot of talk right now around how the U.S. government interacts with companies like Meta. I want to be clear about our position. You know, we're about promoting speech for everyone. We want everything to be safe and secure. We want everyone to have a place at Facebook. In 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take content down, and we own our decisions. But, look, I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. In a separate situation, this pertains to 2020, the FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. That fall, we saw a New York Post story reporting on corruption allegations involving then Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's family. We sent that story to fact checkers for review and temporarily demoted it while waiting for a reply. It has been clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation. That is to say, the hacks over at the FBI and DOJ either honestly got it wrong because they don't know anything and they're completely incompetent, or they lied, which, frankly, I think the more charitable view is probably that they're not totally brain dead and they probably just lied about it to help Joe Biden. Why is Zuckerberg admitting all of this now? Why is Zuckerberg coming out just weeks before a major presidential election and saying, yeah, the federal government, the deep state under the Trump administration, the deep state that was working against Trump under the Trump administration, and the Biden administration since Biden took office, have pressured Facebook to censor conservatives. Why is he saying that now? Is it because Mark Zuckerberg all of a sudden is a right-wing Republican? I don't think so. I think he's probably soured a little bit on the far left. Maybe not quite as much as Elon Musk, but I do think Mark Zuckerberg is not the most left-wing radical in the world. Many of his employees are, but I don't think that he is. I think the reason he's admitting this now in a letter to Jim Jordan, one, I don't think he wants to lie to Congress, but two, he doesn't want to be caught holding the bag. That's what this is really about. In 2016, the libs blamed Mark Zuckerberg for Trump winning. Mark Zuckerberg should have done more to stop Trump from winning. He should have suppressed Trump on Facebook. Donald Trump, the Trump campaign in 2016, did an incredible job of using social media. The Hillary campaign totally failed at social media. Trump used it to his advantage and he won. And the libs blamed Mark Zuckerberg and they threatened him and they scolded him. And so in 2020, he helped rig the election for Biden. And as he's admitting here, he went along with it. And then the conservatives attacked him. And the conservatives have much less political power in our current order. But nevertheless, I think Zuckerberg just doesn't want to be blamed. And he doesn't want to be caught holding the bag. And especially now with a good chance that Donald Trump wins in November, he wants to get it all out in the open and just say, hey, it's not me. I wash my hands of this. Okay, it was the DOJ. It's the FBI. Look, we own our decisions, but the government pressured us and the Biden administration pressured us. And hey, if any shenanigans happen, don't blame me. I ain't doing this again. This is a defensive posture from Facebook to say, you, the left and the right, duke it out amongst yourselves. Please don't put me in the middle. But of course, Facebook and Google, basically just Facebook and Google, a little bit Twitter, X, constitute the public square in America. And we are in a republic, and in a republic, speech is politics. It is how we conduct politics, which means there's no way to avoid it. Zuckerberg is going to remain at the center of this. He can protest all he wants, but he wields a lot of power. Wittingly or unwittingly, he's going to have to pick a side. Now, we need to restore some balance to our political order. We need to restore balance to nature. Well, you got to check out Balance of Nature. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Knowles. Balance of Nature fruits and veggies is the most convenient way to get whole fruits and vegetables daily. Balance of Nature takes fruits and vegetables, they freeze dry them, turn them into a powder, and then put them into a capsule. You take your fruit and veggie capsules every day, and then your body knows what to do with them. Balance of Nature is just one ingredient of a balanced lifestyle and has no intention to replace a healthy diet, exercise, sleep, or any other healthy habits. It is intended to be used in concert with other healthy habits. I absolutely love Balance of Nature, especially because I don't eat the most balanced diet. Okay, maybe it's kind of like meat and pasta kind of thing, and nice eggs from Elisa in the morning, but not so many fruits and veggies. Balance of Nature makes it so easy for me to get the fruits and veggies that I need. And the rest of the office loves it too. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Knowles for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer, plus get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That is balanceofnature.com, promo code Knowles. Speaking of getting caught holding bags of stuff, Bobby Kennedy Jr. has now been revealed in the establishment media to have once cut off the head of a whale on the beach and then taken this big fleshy bag of whale guts and strapped it to the hood of his car with the windows a little bit down, because obviously he had to tie it up, and then to drive from Hyannisport, from the Kennedy compound, I guess, to Mount Kisco, New York, which is the town where Bobby Kennedy lived. And coincidentally, it's the town where I was born and grew up, the town right next to where I grew up. So I'm very familiar with this area. It's a very long drive with whale guts and juices and stuff just pouring out the whole time. And the media are reporting on this now, of course, because RFK endorsed Trump. This is from the New York Daily News. You've heard a few weird stories about Kennedy over the years, but back when Bobby Kennedy was a reliable Democrat, he was hailed as a great hero, a hero of environmental justice, a great lawyer, a scion of the wonderful Kennedy family. Then the minute that he started to go a little bit independent from the liberal establishment, all of a sudden, people came down on him. Even on the anti-vaccine activism that Kennedy's engaged in. Many people listening won't remember, but back when Kennedy was a loyal Democrat, the left even embraced the anti-vaccine activism. Jon Stewart on The Daily Show gave Kennedy this very soft, happy interview about thimerosal and vaccines. That was back when the left was still able to question certain aspects of big pharma, big agriculture. Not anymore. Now that the left has fully taken over basically every single institution in public life, now that RFK Jr. is running independent, especially now that RFK Jr. endorsed Donald Trump, oh man, he's a total kook. James Carville said he ought to be committed. Top Democrat strategist says a sane and serious country would commit RFK to an insane asylum. What's wrong with this? The headline makes it seem weird. RFK Jr. once chainsawed off a whale's head, took it home. I don't know. It was a beached whale. It was already dead. Whales are cool. And RFK Jr. is a hunter and an outdoorsman. RFK Jr. is into falconry. He hunts. There's another story about him like tossing bear carcasses into his car. This is going to be really scandalous for cosmopolitan liberals who've never handled a gun and who've probably never even taken a hike into nature. But this isn't that weird. People hunt. It's cool. In fact, this makes me think more highly of RFK's environmentalism. When I grew up, I assumed he was an environmentalist along the lines of the people who throw soup on Van Gogh paintings and blow up dams and, that worship Mother Gaia and chain themselves to trees while they hug them. But no, now I'm listening to all these stories coming out that are intended to damage RFK's reputation. It only makes me think more highly of him because it's clear enough. This guy's environmentalism is much closer to a Teddy Roosevelt style conservationism. And that's good. I'm into that, man. I am not into just knocking down all of nature and building more Walmarts or something. I like nature. It is a conservative position to like nature, to conserve things, to be a conservationist. The difference between leftist environmentalism and right-wing conservationism is the object, the purpose of the conservation. For the left, we need to destroy all human development and advancement in order to preserve the sacred Delta smelt. In the left-wing version, we exist to serve the earth. We exist to serve the polar bears and the rock of the earth. Right-wing conservation says we love nature. We will place some reasonable regulations on industry and governments to preserve nature for our enjoyment because we like taking walks, because we like having cool whale heads on our walls, and we like bear sausage sometimes during hunting season, and we like beauty. This is actually why I've always defended King Charles's supposed environmentalism. The environmentalism of someone like a King Charles or a Teddy Roosevelt or apparently an RFK is the environmentalism of the garden. Not the environmentalism of the jungle, the environmentalism of the garden. That we're going to make beautiful spaces for ourselves to go fox hunting. I don't go fox hunting, but it seems nice. I like that there is fox hunting. I like that God's creation can be cultivated, curated, with nice boundaries, with pruning the bushes and everything. It's not wild, it's not savage, it's beautiful, but it's beautiful for us and for our enjoyment. And so we can flourish. We're made to have some interaction with nature, and so that we can know something about the creator from the creation, in the same way that you would learn something about Shakespeare by reading Hamlet or King Lear. I'm totally into it. Now, speaking of unusual kinds of conservatism, big piece in the Wall Street Journal out about the new CEO and chairman of Starbucks. He's this guy, what's his name? Brian Nicole. Starbucks' new boss gets an unusual perk, remote work. Brian Nicole can stay in his Southern California home and commute via a corporate jet to Seattle. And the reason this is making headlines right now is because you look at this picture of the new CEO of Starbucks sitting in his nice office, and you find out that he's going to commute to work on a private jet once a week. And you can see a little book back there. You got to zoom in. The book says, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. Perhaps the CEO of Starbucks is reading that book while he is on his private jet, spewing poison into the atmosphere once a week because he doesn't want to move up to Seattle because the libs have so destroyed Seattle that it feels like a war zone half the time and like a homeless camp the other half of the time. And everyone's going to attack. You're going to hear a lot of attacks from the right on the Starbucks CEO here for the hypocrisy. But I'm not going to attack him. I do not attack Starbucks, especially at this sacred time of the secular liturgical calendar, the season of pumpkin spice. I am not attacking Starbucks. I love this kind of stuff. In as much as this guy can speak the language of liberalism. Starbucks is so good at this. Starbucks speaks the language of liberalism. It's totally acceptable to cosmopolitan, artistic elites. You go into Starbucks and your barista, probably 50% chance your barista has purple hair and is going to vote for Kamala and Tim Walz and everything. But the Starbucks corporation is very conservative. My friend Alan Estrin, the head of PragerU, pointed out years ago, he's another Starbucks aficionado. He said Starbucks effectively installed high-quality public restrooms in every major city in the world. Used to be, people forget this, back in the 90s, if you were walking around a city, you needed to use a bathroom, you'd have to awkwardly walk into a restaurant, kind of pretend that you were a customer at the restaurant, maybe sneak. Now you just go, it's beautiful, nice public bathrooms. You go in the coffee, it's good. It's reliable coffee. You can go do work there. They give you Wi-Fi. Even though they pay lip service to letting homeless people and stuff hang around, they keep it kind of clean and nice. I think it's really important that Starbucks, generally speaking, can speak the language of liberal modernity without giving way to the dumb liberal reality. Yeah, this guy, he's going to have one book on his shelf that talks about, the avoiding climate catastrophe. Yeah, we all want to avoid climate catastrophe, don't we? But in his behavior, and even in the way he runs this company, I hope it's his first week or so on the job, but as his predecessors have run the company, they pay a little lip service to the lib stuff, so they don't get kicked out of the party in the cities. But they run their company in a way that is civilized and, dare I say, even conservative. Crazy. We got a Kennedy and we got the CEO of Starbucks exhibiting really profoundly conservative behaviors. I love that. That's very healthy. When you want to focus on your health, you got to check out Lumen. Go to lumen.me, use promo code Knowles. I have, in recent weeks, decided I need to take my health a little bit more seriously, in part because I was reading a book by a Dominican philosopher named A.G. Sertillange, and he told me I had to do that. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll exercise a little bit. Maybe I'll try to eat a little bit better, something like that. You don't need to make it hard on yourself, though. One way, especially if you're crunched for time, that you can really start to prioritize your health is to check out Lumen. Lumen is more than just making a decision. It's making a commitment to a better quality of life. It's the first handheld metabolic coach. I sit in my office and I just kind of play with the Lumen all day. It's so futuristic looking. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. You just breathe into it. Then you pull up your app and it tells you everything that's going on with your metabolism. It tells you whether you're burning mostly fats or mostly carbs, gives you your unique metabolic data, crafts a personalized nutrition plan for that day. You don't need to hire an expensive nutritionist. You don't need to, it's just a matter of minutes, not even a matter of seconds, really. You can get a clear health plan for your day. If you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S, to get 15% off your Lumen, lumen.me. Use Knowles for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this show. Speaking of dumb liberal realities, I have maybe the dumbest Politico headline you are ever going to hear. There will be many headlines that tie it because Politico has a lot of dumb headlines, but this one, there is no dumber Politico headline. Our corrupt leadership. J.D. Vance tries to tether Kamala Harris to Joe Biden during a Michigan rally. This is headline news, according to the magazine of the Beltway establishment. Headline news is J.D. Vance is trying to tether the current vice president of the United States to the president of the United States. That J.D. Vance, that dirty trickster, he's trying to tie Joe Biden to the woman that he selected to be his running mate, and whom he is imbued with presidential power on some of the most important issues. And Joe Biden, this was really tricky of J.D. Vance. He somehow did a Jedi mind trick to convince Joe Biden and all the Democrats to refer to this administration as the Biden-Harris administration. Wow, boy, he is Houdini, isn't he? Next thing you know, this snake, J.D. Vance, is going to try to tether Joe Biden to Jill Biden, just because they have the same last name and they're married and they share the same bed. Next thing you know, J.D. Vance, he's going to try to tie Joe to Hunter. We got to watch this tricky J.D. Vance. It shows you, it's a very silly headline, but it also shows you something about how the Democrats are thinking about strategy right now. Initially, to get Kamala the nomination when they were trying to switch out Joe Biden, they had to make it seem as though Kamala was an equal partner in this administration with Joe Biden. She's got the experience. No, she's been in the room. She's the last person in the room when Joe Biden makes decisions. She has presidential duties when it comes to the border, when it comes to high-speed internet in rural areas. No. She's practiced. She's ready for the job. She's the natural successor to Biden. Also, she has nothing to do with this administration. They're realizing because this administration's a total failure. That was one of the reasons that it was headed for defeat in November, even beyond Biden's obvious senility. Now they realize, okay, now she's got the nomination. Okay, she can have nothing to do with this administration because this administration is a complete disaster, and most people know it. So we're now going to cry foul when people point out that she is the current vice president. Politico additionally is reporting something about Kamala's first sit-down interview since she took over this ticket. Pretty astounding. Trump talks to reporters all the time. This woman has not sat down for an interview. She finally agrees she's going to sit down for one interview. It's going to be with CNN's Dana Bash. It's going to be with a very, very friendly reporter on a very, very friendly network. And she can't even do it on her own. Kamala says it's got to be a joint interview with Tim Walz. Tim Walz, not exactly a Rhodes Scholar himself, okay, but she felt so insecure, so unable to conduct even one interview with a friendly reporter on her own that she needs to tag team it with Tim Walz so he can bail her out of any tough questions which will not come. He has to bail her out of easy questions. But Politico was reporting that Kamala would consider the race and sex of the reporter for the first interview. So now we're hearing it's going to be with CNN's Dana Bash. But according to Politico, they said almost everyone we talked to said Harris will consider race and gender in making her choice, and that she would be keen to sit down with a black and or female reporter, though nobody believes that's a requirement. So if the Dana Bash thing is true, it's obviously not a black reporter, it is a female reporter. And this Politico does have great access to the Kamala campaign and did speak to a lot of people around her. And this would make perfect sense. This is the DEI candidate. I'm using Joe Biden's words. Joe Biden said diversity, equality, and inclusion was so important to his administration. It starts all the way at the top with Kamala Harris. Joe Biden is the one who called Kamala a DEI candidate, and the DEI candidate wants to pick a DEI reporter to do a DEI interview. Then they kind of had a moderate middle ground, I guess. It'll be a woman on a very friendly network, but not necessarily black. Okay, we got to tag team it with Tim Walz. Real protected. They are protecting her from herself. They are protecting her from her own words. That's why we don't hear much from her. Now, speaking of Democrats getting jobs, the Trump campaign has caused some controversy on the right. Again, all this controversy on the right. I think mostly because the right is a little too reactive. I think the right still hasn't learned anything in 8 years. The right, just anytime Trump says anything, they won't even take a deep breath before they react to it and start pulling their hair out. I'm talking about the professional right, the establishment right, the Beltway right. The latest cause of a right-wing freakout is that Tulsi Gabbard and Bobby Kennedy have supposedly been named the chairman of the Trump transition team. That's how it's being discussed. Hold on, you got two former Democrats, very recently Democrats, two people who ran for president as Democrats. You got them leading the Trump transition team. What the heck is going on? This is completely unacceptable. Calm down. Take a deep breath. It's fake news. It's not true. The way I know it's not true is that we already know who the chairman of the Trump transition team are. It's major Trump donors, Republicans, Linda McMahon and Howard Lutnick. They're the co-chairmen of the transition team. What is the position held by Tulsi and RFK? They are the honorary co-chairmen of the Trump transition team. And if you never worked on a political campaign, I'll let you in on a little secret. Honorary chairman means nothing. It means you have nothing to do with this. It means we like you. We want to honor you. We appreciate your endorsement. Maybe we appreciate your donations in some cases. We appreciate you just being affiliated with us. But we don't actually want you to do anything. Maybe you just smile away for the camera, give a speech or two, but that's it. That's what honorary co-chairman means. The position is entirely symbolic. Now, I don't mean to diminish it. It's good for Tulsi and RFK Jr. to have these positions because the symbolism of their endorsing Trump is what matters. They know that. They're totally aware of that. And maybe they'll have some position in the Trump administration. But they're not going to be casting all the roles in the Trump administration. Not a chance of that. The value is symbolic. Every time, I don't know, this has been going on now for 8 years, but every time Trump says something, it's not just the left that clutches its pearls. It's many on the professional right. They just clutch their pearls. They immediately go to the worst possible interpretation of what's being done, frequently getting the facts wrong about it, frequently buying into a left-wing narrative about it. And then what's the reality? You just look at the reality of the Trump administration. The Trump administration was good. It was good. It was the best presidential administration of my lifetime. So if you consider that, maybe just take a deep breath. And then you look at the facts and you say here, oh, this is nothing. This is truly a non-controversy. Now, speaking of Trump endorsements, there's one endorsement that is driving people on the left crazy, and that is Trump accepting the endorsement of Swifties. There was a post. You see a headline. It says, Swifties turning to Trump after ISIS foiled Taylor Swift concert. And there's a picture of a blonde woman that says, Swifties for Trump. And below that, even more pictures of women, Swifties for Trump. Then there's one of it's a cartoon of Taylor Swift in an Uncle Sam hat. It says, Taylor wants you to vote for Donald Trump. And it says, Swifties have determined they want a strong leader in the White House. Swifties for Trump movement is real. And Trump just posted on Truth Social. He says, I accept. And the libs are crying foul. This is a deep fake. This is a deep fake. And Trump is either so stupid that he fell for the deep fake, or he's lying. He's lying. This is a fraud. Donald Trump, he's pretending that he's not pretending that Taylor Swift endorsed him. It's kind of what he's winking at. But he said, no, it's just the Swifties endorsed him. I'm sure there's some Swifties who have endorsed him. But the picture he posted, it says satire on it. On that headline, it actually says right above the headline, it says satire. President Trump knows how to read. And you know what else he knows? You know what this really is? Trump summed this up many years ago. What he's doing right now.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling. That's what it is. I don't think Donald Trump believes that the Taylor Swift army is coming out now, solidly for Donald Trump. You remember there's an extremely viral song by the bold lib Angela Belcamino. She says, I'm a bold lib, Taylor's on my side. There was this fear early on, some months ago, that the Democrats were just waiting to deploy the Taylor Swift endorsement because Taylor Swift is the biggest pop star in the world and she's a huge lib and she endorsed Biden last time and this. So what it's called, we do a little trolling. It's called we do a little trolling. And if you are still so humorless on the left that you think this is a kind of fraud, I would remind you, this is certainly no worse than the way the Democrat media misrepresent reality all the time. The way the Democrat media use push polls, for instance. The way the Democrat media frame stories as critics say, Mr. President, that they really hate you and you're a big orange jerk and that we hate you. Critics say, it's just what the critics are saying. It's just what the people say. Totally misrepresenting the views of the American people. So President Trump going out and saying, I accept the endorsement of some Swifties, not even close. It's obviously funny. It says satire right on the post, but also, even if he were doing it with a totally straight face, it would be far less egregious than the kind of misrepresentation you get from the left. Now, speaking of confounding public figures, Russell Brand has just made a very important observation about what happens when you pray, how your entire perception of the world, how apparently the way the world even works seems to change. We'll get to that in 1 second. First, though, for a limited time, you can get 35% off a new DailyWire Plus annual membership with the code FIGHT when you head over to dailywire.com/subscribe. Every day at the Daily Wire, we're fighting the left and building the future. Now we're shaking up Hollywood with our debut nationwide theatrical release, Am I Racist? Matt Walsh's DEI-busting comedy that's hitting theaters September 13th. Theaters are selling out across the country. None of this happens without our members. So join Daily Wire Plus today. Get 35% off your new annual membership with code FIGHT. My favorite comment yesterday is from Sean DeLapp 8587, who says, there's no such thing as hate speech, just speech that you hate. I like this comment. It's my favorite comment, but I don't actually agree with it. It's a line that libertarians and some conservatives use, but I don't think that's true. I think there is such a thing as hate speech. I'm not saying it should be, banned by, the federal government or something, but there is such a thing as hate speech. It's speech which expresses hatred. And that's real. There is speech that expresses hatred. And it's not always bad, by the way. Sometimes you'll say, well, it's the left that engages in hate speech, not us. We engage in love speech. Well, yeah, generally that's true. But I do hate certain things. I hate evil. I hate the devil. I hate sin. I hate it. and I express that hatred in my speech. And I don't think that should be banned. I think that kind of hate speech should be encouraged, because that hating evil is actually a species of love, because it's about loving the good. The problem with the hate speech is not that there's no such thing as hate speech, not that there's no distinction between different kinds of speech. It's that the kind of speech that is encouraged now by the left is hateful, and the kind of speech that is discouraged and suppressed and sometimes outright banned is good speech that expresses the truth. That's the difference. The problem is not hate speech. It's what we hate and what we love. We're supposed to hate evil and love good. And in modern liberal culture, we are told that we have to hate the good and love evil. And that's not good. I hate that. Speaking of good and evil, holiness and religion, Russell Brand has just observed that the more he prays, the more coincidences seem to happen.
Since I've become a Christian, I've been asked a lot about mentorship, and I've spoken to some very well-known and popular and brilliant members of the Christian community. For example, Nicky Gumbel has really helped me. I'm reading his Bible in 1 year. And J. John has been fantastically helpful to me. Yesterday, we prayed about allowing Christ to knock on the door of your heart and saying, Christ, if you are there, I open the door of my heart to you. Today, when I looked at the Bible, it said the famous William Temple quote must always be considered, that the more I pray, the more coincidences seem to happen. Coincidences are created by prayer, a kind of sacred synergy, you might call it. So I was thinking about this idea of our Lord Jesus knocking on the door of my heart, because I feel like even though I am Christian, there is, of course, more yield, more selfishness, more territory within me to be yielded to him. And then today, on my anniversary, my wife gave me this gift. And as I opened the doors, I saw that coincidences happen more when I pray.
Okay, so he's pointing to this particular coincidence, but the rule that he's laying out is a really good one. I don't think it's quite precisely the way he's describing it, but it's so true. The more you pray, the more coincidences will seem to happen. This was true even in my own reversion. I was an atheist for like 10 years, and when I was reverting, I was in the process of reverting, I stumbled across a book. I was at a political event that coincidentally was taking place at a high school friend's father's bar and restaurant in Manhattan. And there were all these sorts of books on the table, lots of right-wing books, some of which were kind of like schlock. But one of them looked really interesting to me. And it was a book, small little book, and it said Coincidentally by George W. Rutler. And there was an epigraph on the top, and it said, all nature is but art unknown to thee, all chance direction which thou canst not see. A line that I've used on this show, especially in the early days, quite a lot. It's a line from Alexander Pope. I flip it on the back. I see that the top blurb is by William F. Buckley Jr. I had just been in the inaugural class of William F. Buckley Jr. Fellows in college. Big fan of Buckley. I've gone on to write the introduction, the new foreword to Buckley's book, God and Man at Yale. A very important figure. And it said, save this as a valuable Rutler first edition. I opened the front of it, and it's signed by the author. And then I find out, this was the craziest one, the author was a Catholic priest. I was in the process of reverting. It was really happening. Strange things were happening. And then I look and I see he was the priest at a church like 3 blocks away. That was a crazy coincidence. Then I later find out he had actually just been moved out of that parish, and he was moved to a church in Hell's Kitchen, and the church was called St. Michael, another strange coincidence. So what does that mean? The way that Russell Brand has said it, I fear, it's fair enough, but I fear it could confuse people. It's not that your praying causes coincidences to happen. It's that your prayer, living your life in faith, more and more in accord to the truth, will allow the logic of the universe to become more apparent to you. As we receive and cooperate with grace, we see more clearly the hand of the author of grace in the world. That's what happens. But the phenomenon he's describing, the more you pray, the more coincidences seem to happen, that is 100% true. Anyone who has ever undergone a conversion or even a reversion experience, and many other people too, will tell you that. I'm sure there are many people in the comment section who can attest to this right now. And it's really delightful to see as Russell Brand has left a life of hedonism and appears to be, well, he was baptized and then he appears to be growing more and more in the faith. That really does happen. But it's sort of the same thing with prophets. It's not that prophets predict the future like Nostradamus or something with a crystal ball. It's that prophets are telling the truth. In many ways, prophets in the Old Testament are kind of like pundits. They're kind of like commentators. They're telling the truth, and they predict the future. This is another line from Father Rutler, actually. They're telling the truth, and they are predicting the future in as much as they are warning of the consequences of ignoring it or denying the truth. That's what's going on. You see things a lot more clearly, and you see the meaning of things a lot more clearly too. Because the world has meaning. And even the most hardened atheist has to behave as though the world has meaning. That's the only way we can talk to each other. If we deny that things have meaning, then we have to, then we can't speak anymore. Then we're just babbling and just making silly sounds. Okay, I want to close on a little bit more of a serious political point. Forget about all that, trivial, spiritual, eternal stuff. Let's close on the election. That really, that's the real serious stuff. But it does matter. It does have consequences because we live in time and space and history. We got the indictments. We've got endorsements. We've got replacements of nominees. Where does the race stand right now? What you're going to read is that Kamala has all the momentum. Kamala is winning. It's over. Republicans don't even bother showing up to vote. There's a Fairleigh Dickinson poll. Just came out. It shows Kamala Harris is up 7 points nationally. Okay, that's not great. This was a poll that was released last Friday. Found Trump's got 43 points nationally. Harris has 50. 7% of respondents said they will vote for someone else. Important to remember, though, this poll was taken before the RFK announcement. Important to remember, the national vote doesn't really matter. If the national vote decided the election, California and New York would decide every election. What matters is the swing states. We know that in the swing states, the race is 2-3 point race. We know that RFK Jr. had about 5 points in the swing states. RFK has now endorsed Trump. No coincidence, I think, that no mere coincidence, rather, that Jack Smith has filed the superseding indictment just days after the RFK Jr. endorsement threatens to shake up the race and damage Kamala's chances. What about any other endorsements? Here's one really dumb one that we'll get to before we get to a very important member of Segmentum. Another headline you're going to see to give Kamala that big mo. 200 former Bush, McCain, Romney staffers endorse Harris. Wow, 200. Happens to be pretty much the same 200 that endorsed Biden in 2020. Here's what they say. Of course, we have plenty of honest ideological disagreements with Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. That's to be expected. The alternative, however, is simply untenable. At home, another 4 years of Donald Trump's chaotic leadership, this time focused on advancing the dangerous goals of Project 2025, will hurt real everyday people and weaken our sacred institutions. Abroad, democratic movements will be irreparably jeopardized as Trump and his acolyte J.D. Vance kowtow to dictators like Vladimir Putin while turning their backs on our allies. Okay, what this means is Bush, McCain, and Romney employed a lot of Democrats, either explicit, overt Democrats or crypto Democrats and libs. The way I know this is Trump was president and the world was not more chaotic when he was president. It was much more peaceful. The way I know this is that when Trump was president, we were much tougher on Vladimir Putin. We've been much weaker on Vladimir Putin since Biden came into office. Biden invaded Vladimir Putin to invade Ukraine. The way I know this is this buzz phrase, Project 2025. Project 2025, regardless of whatever you heard from the libs that say Project 2025 will, it'll ban, hamburgers from American life or whatever, whatever they say it'll do. Project 2025 is a personnel list. It's a list of people who could staff a future administration, put out by the Heritage Foundation, the most established right-wing think tank in the country, in American history. None of this stuff is radical. This is the swamp. This is the swamp. These guys, these 200 former Bush, McCain, Romney staffers, first of all, it gives me a lot more respect for Trump's personnel choices, even though Trump admits he made some bad personnel choices. Well, he's apparently made better ones than Bush, McCain, and Romney, because look at all these backstabbing libs that he hired, that all of those guys hired. But this is the swamp, and the swamp is going to file new indictments when the old indictments get shot down, and the swamp is going to get the intelligence community, 51 former and current intelligence officials, to lie about news stories that are damaging to Trump's opponents, and the swamp is going to establish the justification for shooting Trump, and the swamp is going to they're going to say we have all these sort of Republican officials for Harris. Okay, that's the swamp. It's every time one of these statements comes out, makes me more confident in my decision to back Trump. Now, some people disagree. Including liberals, some of whom are more demure, some of whom are, a little bit more wallflowers, but some of whom are rather bold. We are going to be talking to perhaps the boldest lib in the country on the show in the Membrum Segmentum. That would be Angela Belcamino. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLES, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.
Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me.
Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
They gon' say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification.
What you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you in this field.
Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging there.
I want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yeah, this country is a piece of
White.
folks,
White.
trash, white supremacy, white woman, white boy.
Is there a black person around here?
There's a black person right here. Does he not
They gon'
exist?
say I'm racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Matt.
Just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gon' say you racist.
Buy your tickets now. In theaters September 13th. Rated PG-13.